I left Chile in 1974. I received a message from my stepfather from the concentration camp where he was, saying, Julio, leave the country. They are asking too much about you. So a few days after, with my wife and my children, I left to Argentina. I have no idea what I will do there. I didn't know anyone there. So it was a very testing time for my family, for myself. In 1977, there was a coup d'etat in Argentina, and I graduated in coup d'etat. That was my second one in a row. And at that time, we decided that we have to leave Argentina because Chilean exiles in Argentina were not welcome either. So we came to the USA. I went to California. I met with a group of people there, and we began to do work. And I studied philosophy of language at that time, not as an intellectual interest. It was mostly an existential desire. I needed to give my life meaning, purpose, direction, future. And I began to lead workshops on the topic of effective communication and topics related to work effectiveness and so forth, all over Canada, USA, and Mexico. And every time that I gather with people, and I gather with thousands of them, people reported, once we have a trusted environment, a respectful environment, a loving environment, people begin to speak about their pains. And actually, I think in my life, I've heard more about human suffering than I ever believed that I will be hearing from. One day, in my reflection about this pain that I constantly was listening everywhere, there was one person that raised his hand in a room and said to me, Julio, you know that I have in my life everything that I was told that if I had it, I should be happy. And that's the last thing I have in my life, happiness. When he spoke like that, and after all the other people speaking about their pain, their suffering, their lack of happiness, I began to realize that there was something there that was beyond the specifics of each case. And that man gave me a big clue, because his report about his unhappiness in spite of having, quote, everything, told me something very important. That could have said a representative of the developed countries of Earth. Do you know that we have everything in this country, in the developed countries? Since the last Second World War, our productivity, our production has grown times and times and times over. And do you know that at the same time, depression has grown over 10 times? Do you know that since that time, we have an enormous amount of depression among young people, and the biggest cause of death between ages 10 and 24 is suicide, by far the biggest one? What is happening to us? We are so concerned about growth and growth and growth all day long. The economy, the economy, the economy. Is it like the last word we pronounce? But what happened with our well-being? You know that the countries that are the most developed countries, in every study about people's happiness and well-being, they are not exactly on the top. So I want to share with you, and please be with me on this, what I found in my working with thousands of people. Let me show you something, a distinction that I want to present to you, which is the following. The observer. I want you to be with me on this. Do you know that everyone in this room does not see the world the same way that the one next to you? That we do see differently? That we observe the world differently? And do you know that that is not a surprise also, right? Everybody knows that. But isn't it interesting? Apparently there is one world out there, you should be seeing the same thing. And it's not the case. And it's not only the case individually, collectively. Americans don't see the world the same way that Germans or Argentinians. And more than that, in some era in the past, people didn't see the world the way we see it, and on and on and on. So I invite you to look at the following. How can we see the world differently? This research can take us to look at my first statement about happiness and wealth. Take a look at the following. If you are invited to see a starry night, and you go with me, probably you will see a lot of stars in the sky. But if you are invited to see the same sky, and you go with an astronomer, and the astronomer starts talking with you, you know what? You will see a different sky. The same eyes, but you will see a different sky. How come? And if you go now, not with an astronomer, you go with an astrologer, you know what? You will see a different sky. And this is not only with sight, it could be with taste. If you go to a wine show and you taste some wine, and then you talk with an expert in wines, probably you will begin to have a sense of flavor different because of the conversation with the expert. So I beg you to consider that we don't see the world the same way, but this has huge consequences. Because look at this, the way you see is connected with the way you act. If you go to a Chinese background trained doctor and you go to a Western tradition doctor and you go with the same pain, both will treat you differently because they don't see the same body. In other words, the way we see is connected with the way we act. And look at the following. The observer that we are, take action and produces results. What happens if we don't like our results? Look at what happened. If the results we produce, we don't like it, the most likely thing we will do is let's change action. Let's do something different. But something very interesting happened. You may change actions, but if you don't change the observer the way you see, you will keep producing more or less the same kind of results. Look at this. If you don't like your results, but this time you take a look at the way you take a look, you observe the way you observe, you shift the way you see things, actions that were impossible to perform before, this time will show up as possibilities for you. Columbus didn't have better sailors in his time. He didn't have more money than anyone else. And he did a trip that no other sailor was doing because he had a different view of the world. So please, consider this with me. How do we see the world today? Today, in this planet, that we are producing what we are producing, a tremendous environmental issues, the pollution of the ocean. We are having this concentration of wealth that is amazing. 1% or less of the human population owns more than 55% of human wealth. How come we are producing results of that sort? Look at what's happening with species that are disappearing in the planet. But don't worry, our gross national product is growing. Therefore, we should be happy. So please consider the following. What is special about the way we see the world in our times? For this, very briefly, let me tell you that in the Middle Ages in Europe, something extraordinary took place. We look at the world in a particular way. The world was there, we were in the center of the universe, and the reason for life was to be living a life with virtuosity so that you can earn the path to heaven. Knowledge was obtained for the masters, and that was pretty much, to make it short, something that is more complex than that, of course. Copernicus arrived. Our place in the universe changed, but not only that, it changed the whole coherence of the view that we had. And guess what happened? I'm making a story short of something that was complex at the time. In order to deal with this profound earthquake of human consciousness, we divided human reality in two realms, the inner and the outer, the exterior and the interior world. And we focus all our efforts, all our research to the exterior aspect of reality. We forgot the interior territory, and if we didn't forget it completely, we put it like in a second place. Our language divided body and soul, matter and spirit, and more, objective and subjective. And if you notice, when we say the word objective, means I'm in touch with the truth. Objective is very serious. And we say subjective is like subjective, like second class. Because we abandoned that territory. We did abandon that territory. All our efforts went to the exterior territory. Science developed there. And you know what? Because of that path had success in terms of producing more and getting new technologies and so forth, the more the time went, the more we abandoned the interior territory of human existence. No wonder so much pain. We dedicated everything in that direction. Look at this. Matter was the basic of existence. We disenchanted the universe. The universe is matter that is run by physical law. It has no purpose, no meaning. We were suddenly alone in this universe. Purpose, meaning, spiritual life, emotional life was all in the territory that we left out. That's why when we look at this from the perspective of our times, we keep thinking that the solution of all the problems that we are having is going to come from technology. Oh, technology, my God, you will save me. But listen, the issue is not a technological issue. The issue is a human issue. And we need for that to take a look at a few of the things. For instance, briefly, look at this for a moment. Two territories of the internal world, spiritual and emotional. To make it short, what is the spiritual territory? I don't want to confuse it with religious territory, and they can share some places. Spiritual territory, what is that? It's simply this: to experience sacredness in everydayness. To be able to revere the stars, the ocean, your children, the water we drink. That is spiritual life. Is finally give back to the universe his sacredness, his mystery, his beauty. And what is the emotional territory? Well, my friend, is that predisposes us to act. And in the world we are living, we will have to do some things in this field. Let me give you some hints on that. First, we will have to give our sadness room. First, sadness has bad press, very bad press. And sadness is connected with meaning. We are sad when we have an important loss. Therefore, sadness indicates what matters to me. Have you had days when sadness visits you and you don't know exactly why? Well, it's letting you know that you have lost something. And a lot of that is happening in the world today because there are losses everywhere that we are beginning to be in touch with, even if we are not clearly identifying them. Another emotion, gratitude. We need to cultivate it. It's revolutionary. It's the emotion of sufficiency. Thank you, life, for this. For the freedom I enjoy. For a moment like this with you. Thank you, life. But also care. We have to practice care in this planet as if for the first time. If our emotional life doesn't shift, the observer we are will not shift either. Greed is too popular these days. It's about time. And one more, and I invite all of you to be in touch with this. We need to develop courage for what is coming. We don't know it. We have to invent it. And for that, we have to acknowledge, first of all, we need a new knowing. Thank you very much.